Professor Simone Langford's hands trembled as Sheriff Harlan Graves slammed her against the hood of her Lexus. His breath reeked of coffee and contempt. You people think you can park wherever you want. The words cut through the humid Georgia afternoon like a blade. This is one of those black stories that shouldn't happen, yet here we are. Real-life stories do not always follow the script we want them to. In the historic district of Magnolia Springs, Simone had parked 18 feet from a fire hydrant. The legal minimum was 15 feet. She had measured. She always measured. Sheriff Graves kicked her briefcase across the pavement, Columbia law letterhead scattered like leaves. He did not even glance down. I don't care what fancy papers you got. Have you ever been punished for a crime you did not commit while the evidence of your innocence lay scattered at your feet? Simone reached into her car with deliberate slowness. Every movement calculated, every breath controlled. She produced a yellow tape measure from her glove compartment. Sheriff, would you measure with me? Graves's face reddened. He was in his mid-50s, with decades on the force. Several complaints had been dismissed in recent years. His badge caught the afternoon sun. I don't need to measure nothing. I know a violation when I see one. Simone extended the tape measure anyway. From her rear tire to the hydrant, 18 feet 3 inches beyond that. She held it taut so Graves could see, so the growing crowd could see, so the phones recording from the sidewalk could see. She pulled out her phone with her free hand, scrolled to the city ordinance, and turned the screen toward Graves. Section 1930 for B, 15 feet minimum. Graves's jaw clenched. His partner, Deputy Ramirez, shifted his weight behind him. Ramirez was younger, and his hand moved to his own phone. He checked something. His expression changed. You calling me a liar? Graves stepped closer. That's obstruction. I'm not calling you anything. The tape measure is calling you mistaken. The words hung in the air. Too calm. Too precise. Graves's hand moved to his radio. Smart mouth's going to get you more than a ticket, sweetheart. He called for backup, his voice carrying across the street. Hostile, non-compliant, those words. Simone had heard them in case files, in depositions, in courtrooms where officers explained why they escalated force. The language was a tell, a red flag, a preview. I've shown you compliance, Simone said. I've shown you the law. What I haven't shown you is fear. Graves heard it as a threat. Or maybe he chose to hear it that way. His hand was already reaching for his handcuffs. You're under arrest. Threatening an officer. The cuffs went on. Simone did not resist. She let her wrists come together behind her back. Let the metal bite into her skin. She knew what resistance looked like on a police report. She knew what juries believed. The crowd grew. People, mostly white retirees with shopping bags from the boutiques that lined Main Street. One woman, with silver hair and pearls, leaned toward Simone. Just do what he says, honey. Don't make it worse. From across the street, Victor Langston unlocked his phone. He owned the antique store on the corner, and he had lived in Magnolia Springs his entire life. He had seen this before. Different faces, same script. He started a live stream. Y'all seeing this? Simone's briefcase lay open on the sidewalk, its contents visible to anyone who cared to look. A Columbia Law School faculty ID, a Georgia Bar Association card, a longtime member, an invitation to the governor's task force on criminal justice reform. Embossed letterhead, a business card had landed face up near Graves's boot. Simone Langford, J.D., professor of constitutional law. Graves saw none of it. Or he saw it and dismissed it. The distinction did not matter. He was committed now. Deputy Ramirez bent down, picked up some of the papers. His eyes moved across the governor's letterhead. He straightened slowly. Harlan, maybe we should. Maybe you should remember who's in charge. They placed Simone in the back of the squad car. She sat perfectly still, hands cuffed, back straight, eyes forward. Through the window, she watched Graves address the crowd. Show's over. This is what happens when people don't respect law enforcement. Victor kept filming. His viewer count climbed. Ain't no show, Sheriff. This is a documentary. Simone's phone buzzed in the front seat where Graves had placed it. The screen lit up with each incoming call. Contact names scrolled past. Dean Caldwell, Senator Hayes, Professor Ellis. Each notification a clue Graves would never see. Her car registration was visible through the window. Leased through Columbia University Faculty Services. New York plates. A bumper sticker partially obscured by Graves's leg. Columbia Law alumni leading voices in justice. She wore a Cartier tank watch. Subtle wealth. the kind that does not announce itself but never lies about its origins. Her shoes were Ferragamo. Her briefcase was Toomey. None of it mattered to Graves, or all of it mattered in exactly the wrong way. The squad car pulled away from the curb. Simone watched the historic district recede through the rear window. The boutiques, the coffee shops, the people who had watched her get arrested for a crime that never happened. She had been in Magnolia Springs for under an hour. She had come to meet a colleague at the university satellite campus. She had parked legally. She had followed every rule. And now she was in handcuffs. This is how it happens, she thought. This is how the system works. When you are on the wrong side of it, when your credentials do not matter, when your education does not protect you, when the color of your skin is the only evidence that counts. She had taught this constitutional law. Fourth Amendment protections, probable cause, qualified immunity. She had written articles about it, testified before legislative committees, trained judges, and now she was living it. The irony was not lost on her. Neither was the opportunity. Because Simone Langford did not just teach constitutional law. She practiced it. She litigated it. And she had been waiting for a case exactly like this one. She just had not expected to be the plaintiff. The Magnolia Springs Police Department occupied a brick building on Oak Street, never renovated. The processing desk was staffed by Sergeant Lena Brooks, a black woman with decades on the force and eyes that had seen everything twice. She looked up when Graves brought Simone in. Her eyebrows rose. Graves slid the paperwork across the desk. Parking violation, obstruction, threatening an officer. Brooks read slowly. Her eyes moved from the report to Simone to Graves, back to the report. Harlan, you measured the distance, didn't need to. Clear violation. That's not how probable cause works. Graves's neck reddened. You questioning my judgment, Lena. The room went quiet. Simone stood between them, hands still cuffed, watching the power dynamics play out like a case study from her seminar. Brooks set down the paperwork. She gets a phone call. Lena, constitutional, right? She get her call when I say so. She gets it now. That's not optional. Graves stormed toward the holding area. Brooks unlocked Simone's handcuffs, rubbed her wrists where the metal had pressed, and led her to the phone on the wall. Make it count, Brooks said quietly. Simone dialed from memory. The call connected after 2 rings. Dean Caldwell's office. Sarah, it's Simone. I need to speak with Marcus. A pause. Professor Langford, are you? We've been trying to reach you. There's a video. I know. Put Marcus on. Another pause. Then Dean Marcus Caldwell's voice filled the line. Concern mixed with disbelief. Simone, what the hell happened? Magnolia Springs. Sheriff Graves. Yes, that Sheriff Graves. She glanced at Brooks. No, let it play out. Document everything. She hung up. By then Victor Langston's live stream had hundreds of concurrent viewers. The number climbed as people shared the link. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit. The video showed everything. The measurement, the arrest, Graves's words about you people, Simone's calm, the scattered legal documents. Comments flooded in. That's Professor Langford from the Netflix documentary. She literally wrote the textbook on police misconduct litigation. Graves just arrested the woman who trains judges. Oh, this is about to get good. Local news picked it up. Columbia law professor arrested in Magnolia Springs. The chyron ran beneath shaky footage from Victor's phone. Graves's Facebook page, public and unmoderated, began filling with comments. His friend count dropped. His review score plummeted. The mayor's office phone rang and rang and rang. Hundreds of calls in a short time. The receptionist stopped answering. Let them go to voicemail. The messages were all variations of the same theme. What the hell is happening in your town? Councilwoman Sophia Vargas called the sheriff's department. Brooks answered. Is Simone Langford still in custody? Yes, Mom. Sheriff's insisting on holding her. Get the mayor now. Mayor Claire Donovan arrived. She was in her early 50s, third term, former prosecutor. She had known Graves for years. She walked past the front desk, straight to Graves's office, did not knock. Release her. Graves looked up from his computer. He had been reading the comments. His face was stone. I'm not letting some outsider walk because she's got fancy credentials. She's not an outsider. She's a U.S. citizen with rights you're violating. I'm protecting this town from people who think rules don't apply to them. Donovan closed the door, leaned against it. Harlan, I've known you a long time, so I'm going to say this once. You made a mistake. Own it. Fix it. Move on. I didn't make a mistake. You arrested a woman for parking 18 feet from a hydrant when the law says 15. I had public works measure. They confirmed it. You were wrong. I was doing my job. No, you were doing something else. She pulled out her phone, showed him the video. This is what it looks like, Harlan. This is what everyone sees. And they're not seeing a sheriff protecting his town. They're seeing something uglier than that. Graves stood. Get out of my office. Release her tonight, or I'll do it myself. You don't have that authority. Try me. They stood a few feet apart. Years of professional courtesy evaporating in real time. Donovan left first, but she did not leave the building. Simon made another request. I'd like to post bail. Graves appeared from his office. Bail is $5,000. The room went silent. $5,000 for a parking violation. For obstruction. For words Graves claimed were threatening, but nobody else heard that way. That's absurd, Brooks said. That's my decision. Simon did not argue. She had expected this. The banks were closed. She could not access that amount of cash tonight. She could call someone, wire it, but that would take time. Graves knew it. This was deliberate. He wanted her to spend the night. Wanted her to feel powerless. Wanted her to break. Then I'll need a vegetarian meal, Simon said, and a mattress that accommodates my documented back condition. Graves smiled. Not warmth. Cruelty. This isn't a hotel. He denied both requests. Had Simon taken to a holding cell? 6x8 concrete bench, metal toilet, fluorescent light that hummed at a frequency designed to prevent sleep. Simon sat on the bench, closed her eyes, and smiled because Graves had just made his second mistake of the day. The first was arresting her. The second was making it personal. Night fell on Magnolia Springs. The video kept spreading. The viewer count passed millions. News outlets requested interviews. The ACLU issued a statement. The Southern Justice Coalition announced they were monitoring the situation. And in a holding cell in a small Georgia town, Professor Simone Langford planned her next move. She had spent decades teaching law students how to dismantle discriminatory systems, how to use data as a weapon, how to turn individual injustice into systemic reform. She had written the playbook, published it, testified about it. Now she was going to demonstrate it. Graves thought he had won. Thought the night in jail would humble her, teach her a lesson, remind her of her place. He had no idea who he was dealing with. Simon had litigated against police departments in cities many times this size. She had won settlements that changed policies, fired chiefs, reformed training programs. She did not just teach constitutional law. She wielded it like a scalpel. Precise, surgical, devastating. And she was just getting started. She lay on the concrete bench, stared at the ceiling, and thought about Section 1983 of Title 42 of the United States Code, the federal statute that allows citizens to sue government officials for civil rights violations. She thought about monal claims, municipal liability, pattern and practice, qualified immunity defenses, and how to defeat them. She thought about discovery, depositions, subpoenas, expert witnesses, statistical analysis. She thought about every arrest Graves had ever made, every citation, every complaint, every dismissed allegation. And she thought about how all of that was about to become public record. Because Simone Langford did not just want justice for herself. She wanted to change the system that made Sheriff Harlan Graves possible. Morning came with fluorescent harshness. Shift change. Sergeant Owen Whitaker arrived for his day rotation. Decades on the force, nearing retirement. He had survived multiple sheriffs and seen the department at its best and worst. He logged into the computer, reviewed overnight custody logs. His face changed as he scrolled. Graves arrived. Whitaker met him at the door. Harlan, what the hell did you do? My job, something you forgot how to do. Whitaker held up his phone. I have dozens of missed calls. State Attorney General's Office, ACLU, Georgia, DOJ Civil Rights Division. He scrolled. The New York Times called. Harlan, the Times, let them call. I didn't do anything wrong. You arrested a Columbia law professor for a parking violation that didn't exist on camera while she was measuring it. While she was showing you the ordinance. Whitaker's voice climbed. What were you thinking? I was thinking she needed to learn respect. She's about to teach you something a lot more expensive than respect. They brought Simone from the cell. She looked tired but composed. Her clothes pressed despite the circumstances. Her hair still neat. She moved like someone who had spent worse nights and survived them. I need to make a call to my office. I have a class this afternoon. Graves laughed. Actually laughed. You're not making that class, Professor. Whitaker stepped between them. Yes, she is. Because she's being released now. Like hell. Harlan, shut up for once in your life. Shut up and listen. Whitaker turned to Simon. You're free to go. No charges. Bail rescinded. We'll have your car brought around. Simon did not move. I'd like to make that call first. Whitaker gestured to the phone. Simon dialed, put it on speaker without asking permission. Whitaker nodded approval. Dean Caldwell's office. Sarah, it's Simon. I'll need Professor Ellis to cover my constitutional law seminar today. Dean Marcus Caldwell picked up. His voice cracked with relief and rage. Simon, are you? The video. We've been trying to reach you since yesterday. I'm fine, but I need you to do something for me. Anything. The room went still. Graves leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching Simon with narrowed eyes. Contact the students in my seminar. Tell them their assignment is to research Magnolia Springs. Ver Thompson, 1987. She paused. Let that sink in. Then have them research every arrest Sheriff Harlan Graves has made in the past several years. Caldwell inhaled sharply. He understood immediately. Simon, I want a full civil rights audit. Cross-reference with demographics, arrest outcomes, complaint histories. We're making this a class project, real-world application. Graves pushed off the wall. You can't do that. That's harassment. Simon looked at him. Really looked at him. It's public records research. First Amendment protected activity. Would you like me to cite the relevant case law? Her finger hovered over the end call button. One more thing, Marcus. Have the students pay special attention to arrests in the upscale shopping district. I'm curious about the demographic breakdown. Consider it done. She hung up. The silence lasted a few seconds. You think you're clever, Graves said. I don't think. I know. Simon picked up her phone from the desk where Whitaker had placed it, scrolled through her contacts. Now I need to make one more call. She dialed. It rang twice. Southern Justice Coalition. Michelle Rivera speaking. Michelle, it's Simon. I need your litigation team. Michelle Rivera's voice went sharp, professional. We're already mobilizing. The video's been viewed millions of times. The board met overnight. We're ready. I need more than litigation. I need a federal investigation. Graves's face went white. Title VI Compliance Review of Magnolia Springs Police Department. Pattern and Practice Investigation for Discriminatory Enforcement. And I need it filed before noon. Michelle did not hesitate. You'll have it by 11. Graves moved toward Simon. Whitaker blocked him. One hand raised. Stop. Simon continued as if he had not spoken. The organization I'm calling has an annual litigation budget of millions. They've toppled police departments in cities many times this size. They have attorneys in multiple states, and they've been looking for a case exactly like this one. She ended the call, looked at Graves. I want to be clear about something, Sheriff. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for constitutional treatment. Every person you arrest deserves what I'm requesting. You're trying to destroy me. No, Sheriff. Extortion is when someone demands money or action through threats. I'm simply exercising my constitutional right to petition for redress of grievances. Her voice never rose, never sharpened. Each word landed like a legal brief. You taught me that last night when you denied me food, medical accommodation, and basic dignity. You taught me exactly how far you'll go. She stepped closer. Graves stepped back. Now I'm teaching you how far I'll go. Mayor Claire Donovan walked through the front door. Saw Simon. Saw Graves. Read the room in one glance. Mayor, Simon said, I need to speak with you because there's something you need to know about Magnolia Springs liability insurance policy. Donovan froze. What about it? Specifically the civil rights violation exclusions added in recent years. The ones that save you thousands annually in premiums. The ones that mean your insurance won't cover a single dollar of the lawsuit I'm about to file. Graves grabbed the edge of a desk, his knuckles white. What are you talking about? Simon smiled. Not warmth. Knowledge. Your insurance policy is public record, Sheriff, filed with the State Insurance Commission, available to anyone who knows where to look. And I know where to look. She turned to Donovan. Which means every dollar of the settlement or judgment will come from city funds, your budget, your reserves, your taxpayers. Donovan's jaw clenched. How much are we talking about? Depends on what we find. Individual Section 1983 claims can run 6 figures. Compensatory damages, punitive damages, attorney fees, and if we establish a pattern of discrimination. If Sheriff Graves has been doing this to other people, we're talking about a class action, multiple plaintiffs, multiple claims. She let that number hang in the air. 7 figures easily. Donovan looked at Graves, then at Simon, then back at Graves. The calculation was visible on her face. The political math, the fiscal reality, the legal exposure. There's a meeting, Simon said. Today. Emergency session. Town council. You, Sheriff Graves, your city attorney, and me. Because we're going to discuss terms. Terms. Graves's voice cracked. I'm giving you one chance to resolve this before it becomes federal. Before the DOJ gets involved. Before this becomes a years-long investigation that costs millions and destroys reputations. She picked up her briefcase. The one Graves had kicked the day before. Dusted it off. The meeting is at City Hall, conference room B. I'll see you there. She walked toward the door, stopped, turned back. And Sheriff, I practice what I teach. When I tell my students that the law is a tool for justice, I mean it. When I say data is a weapon, I mean it. When I explain how to dismantle discriminatory systems, I mean it. Her hand was on the door. You're about to learn the difference between enforcement and justice. It's a lesson my students get in a classroom. You're getting it in real time. She left. The door closed behind her. The room exhaled. Graves sank into a chair. Whitaker shook his head. Donovan pulled out her phone, started making calls. Emergency meeting, city attorney, insurance liaison, crisis management. Because this was not just about one arrest anymore. It was about every arrest, every citation, every complaint, every dismissed allegation, every person Graves had stopped. In years of patrolling that shopping district, and a Columbia law professor with nothing to lose and everything to prove had just turned Sheriff Harlan Graves's department into a case study, the kind that ends careers, changes policies, rewrites procedures, the kind that makes history. Simone walked to her car. It had been brought from impound. She sat in the driver's seat, checked her phone, texts from colleagues, calls from journalists, emails from former students offering help. She started the engine, checked the distance to the fire hydrant one more time. Still 18 feet. She had been right all along, and she was just getting started. Conference room B was designed for zoning disputes and budget meetings. Not this. Not dismantling a sheriff's career in under 2 hours. But here they were. The room seated 12.7 showed up. Mayor Claire Donovan, 5 town council members including Councilwoman Sophia Vargas, Sheriff Harlan Graves, City Attorney Victor Lang. 2 phones on speaker, one connected to the insurance carrier, one to an independent consultant. Simone Langford arrived. She wore a navy suit, pressed, professional. She carried a leather portfolio and a tablet, set them on the table with deliberate care, sat down across from Graves. This meeting is being recorded, Donovan said. For legal purposes. Simone nodded. Good. Transparency matters. Graves stared at the table. He had not spoken since arriving. Lang, the city attorney, looked like he had not slept. He probably had not. Donovan started. Sheriff Graves, you arrested Professor Langford yesterday for a parking violation that did not exist. Graves opened his mouth. Donovan raised a hand. I had public works measure at dawn. 18 feet 4 inches. You need 15 feet. You were wrong. Silence. Heavy, suffocating. Simone opened her tablet. Mayor, may I present evidence, please? Simone turned the screen toward the center of the table. A spreadsheet appeared, color-coded, cross-referenced, meticulous. These are 127 arrests Sheriff Graves has made in the past several years within Magnolia Springs upscale shopping district. Her finger traced the columns. 93 were black individuals. 22 were Hispanic. 12 were white. Councilwoman Vargas leaned forward. What's the demographic breakdown of that district? According to the latest census and updated retail surveys, the customer base is 73% white, 15% black, 12% Hispanic. The math was obvious. The disparity undeniable. Simone scrolled. Arrest rates show. Black individuals are 6.2 times more likely to be arrested for minor violations in that district compared to white individuals committing the same offenses. Lang's pen stopped moving. He had been taking notes. Now he just stared. Average bail set, Simone pulled up another column. $2,400 for black arrestees. $780 for white arrestees. Same violation categories. Graves's jaw clenched. Statistics can say anything you want them to. These statistics say you're running a racially disparate enforcement operation. Simone's voice never rose. In civil rights law, we call this disparate impact. In plain English, we call it discrimination. She scrolled again. Complaint resolution. 17 complaints filed against Sheriff Graves by people of color in recent years. 0 sustained. 3 complaints filed by white citizens. 2 resulted in retraining. Vargas inhaled sharply. Victor, is this accurate? Lang nodded slowly. I'll need to verify the numbers, but the complaint records are consistent with what she's showing. Simone pulled up a new document. Legal exposure. Section 1983 liability, both individual and municipal. Model claims for municipal policy or custom violations. Qualified immunity is likely defeated by clearly established law. She looked at Graves. You can't claim you didn't know this was wrong, Sheriff. The law on discriminatory enforcement has been clear since the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Decades of precedent. Lang set down his pen. Mayor, our insurance does not cover civil rights claims. That was part of the recent policy revision to lower premiums. The room went cold. I know, Simone said. I read your insurance agreement. It's public record filed with the State Insurance Commission. Donovan's face paled. How much are we talking about, Professor Langford? Compensatory damages, punitive damages, attorney fees. For my claim alone, I'd estimate between $300,000 and $700,000. If we proceed to trial and establish intentional discrimination, we could see punitive damages exceeding $1 million. She paused. Let that number breathe. But here's what concerns me more. If my students complete their audit and we identify a pattern affecting dozens or hundreds of people over multiple years, we're discussing a class action lawsuit. Multiple plaintiffs, multiple claims, damages multiplying with each proven case. Simone pulled up a final document. I've calculated potential exposure based on similar cases. Magnolia Springs could face liability between $5 million and $12 million. The insurance representative's voice crackled through the phone speaker. I can confirm that none of those damages would be covered under the current policy. The municipality would be solely responsible. Donovan looked at the budget documents Lang had brought. The town's annual budget was $8 million. Reserves were $2 million. They could not survive a judgment like that. They would have to cut services, fire personnel, potentially declare bankruptcy, all because of one sheriff's bias. Simone closed her tablet. But I'm not here to bankrupt Magnolia Springs. Graves's head snapped up. Then what do you want? I want to change the system that made you possible. She opened her portfolio, removed a document, slid it across the table. These are my terms. Lang pulled the document closer. Read aloud. Full public apology from Sheriff Graves. Videotaped. Graves's suspension pending independent investigation. Hiring of independent police auditor for a 3-year period. Implementation of bias training. Body camera policy with all interactions recorded and immediately uploaded. Creation of community oversight board with subpoena power. $50,000 donated to Southern Justice Coalition over 2 years. Graves stood. You're trying to destroy me. Sit down, Sheriff Donovan said. I won't sit down. Graves sat, his face red, his hands shaking. Simone leaned forward. No, Sheriff. I'm trying to correct you. Destruction would be easier. I could sue you personally. Target your pension, your assets, your home. She let that sink in. But that does not change systems. That just punishes one person. I want to change the system that allowed you to think what you did to me was acceptable. Vargas picked up the terms document. These seem reasonable, Mayor. More than reasonable considering the exposure. Lang nodded. Substantially less than litigation would cost. And if Professor Langford follows through with a federal investigation, we're looking at years of oversight regardless. This way, we control the narrative. The insurance representative spoke again. From a risk management perspective, I strongly advise accepting these terms. Donovan looked at Graves. Harlan, you have a choice. Accept these terms. Keep your pension. Keep your freedom. Or we go to trial and you lose everything. Graves's voice came out. You're letting her blackmail the department. This isn't blackmail, Lang said. Blackmail involves threats for personal gain. These are settlement terms in anticipation of legitimate civil rights litigation. This is how the law works, Simone added quietly. And Sheriff, these terms aren't just about you. They're about the next person you stop, the next woman you arrest, the next black driver you pull over. I'm trying to make sure your mistakes don't become someone else's trauma. The room fell silent. The only sound was the hum of the ventilation system and the distant ringing of phones in the mayor's office. Journalists calling, activists calling, concerned citizens calling. Donovan picked up the terms document. I'm calling a vote. All in favor of accepting Professor Langford's terms. Vargas raised her hand. Then the others. For council members. Then 5. Motion carries. 5-0. Donovan looked at Graves. Harlan, you're suspended. Effective immediately. 30 days. Pending independent investigation. Graves's face went slack. Claire, you can't. I can. I should have done it years ago. This ends now. She turned to Simone. We'll accept your terms with one modification. The financial contribution will be $25,000 split over 2 years. Our budget can't sustain more without cutting essential services. Simone considered, nodded. Acceptable, but the oversight board must have real teeth. Subpoena power, public reporting, quarterly data releases. Agreed. Lang began typing amendments into his laptop. The insurance representative confirmed the modified terms would resolve the immediate claim. Graves sat frozen. The career he had built over decades crumbling in real time. But he was still sitting there, still collecting a pension, still had a future, more than he had given Simone the day before when he slammed her against her car. The meeting ended. Simone shook hands with Donovan, with Vargas, with Lang. She did not offer her hand to Graves. She walked out of City Hall into bright Georgia sunshine, pulled out her phone, sent a text to Dean Caldwell. Settlement reached. System changes implemented. Class resumes Monday. His response came immediately. That's my colleague. That's my friend. That's my hero. Simone smiled, started her car, checked the distance to the fire hydrant one final time. Still 18 feet. She had been right all along, and she had just changed an entire police department to prove it. These are the real stories that matter. The touching stories that remind us justice is not given, it is fought for. City Hall steps. Cameras from 4 news stations. Reporters from newspapers across Georgia. Victor Langston stood in the front, his phone ready for another live stream. Sheriff Harlan Graves stepped to the microphone. He wore his uniform, full dress. His attorney had written every word he was about to say, every comma lawyered, every phrase sanitized. He unfolded the paper, read. Yesterday afternoon, I made errors in judgment regarding the arrest of Professor Simone Langford. Upon review, I acknowledge measurement errors, escalation errors, and procedural oversights in how the situation was handled. The words came out flat, rehearsed. Legal armor against liability. Victor called from the front row. Say you were wrong about all of it. Graves stopped, looked at his attorney. The attorney shook his head once. Don't. Graves looked at Simone. She stood 10 feet away, arms crossed. She nodded once. Graves folded the paper, went off script. I was wrong about the parking, about the arrest, about, his voice caught, about how I treated Professor Langford. The first genuine moment. The first crack in the armor. Simone approached the microphone after Graves stepped away. She did not touch it at first. Just stood there. Let the moment settle. I do not accept apologies that are legally mandated. I accept changed behavior. Her voice carried across the steps. Strong. Clear. Sheriff Graves will have the opportunity to demonstrate that change. The entire Magnolia Springs Police Department will have that opportunity because this is not just about one arrest. It is about a system that allowed it to happen. She stepped back, did not take questions, did not need to. The reforms would speak for themselves. In the first month, immediate changes arrived. Body cameras ordered. Full shift recording. Immediate upload to cloud servers. Policy written by an ACLU consultant in 3 dense pages of specifics. When to activate, how to store, who can access, public records requests processed within 14 days. All officers retrained. Hours of classroom instruction. Bias recognition. De-escalation. 4th Amendment basics that should have been memorized years ago. An outside firm handled it. No internal instructors. No letting officers train each other on the same mistakes. The complaint process was gutted and rebuilt. External review board. 30-day response requirement. No more complaints disappearing into Graves's desk drawer. No more investigations conducted by the accused officer's friends. Data collection began. Race, gender, age, offense, location, time. Officer, outcome, every stop, every citation, every arrest. The data went into a public dashboard updated weekly. In the third month, structural changes arrived. The Community Oversight Board was established. 7 members, for civilians selected by lottery from applicant pool. 1 city council representative, 1 retired judge, 1 mayoral appointee. Subpoena power over department records, authority to compel testimony. Quarterly public reports mandatory. Dr. Warren Kingsley was hired as independent auditor. He had reformed other departments after their own reckonings. 72 years old. No patience for excuses. His first audit took weeks. His findings took dozens of pages. Officers showed concerning patterns in arrest demographics. Several placed on administrative duty pending further review, not including Graves. He was already suspended. Several officers were eventually terminated. Pattern violations, sustained complaints, evidence of discriminatory enforcement that could not be explained away. The union fought it, lost. The data was overwhelming. In the 6th month, the Transparency Hub arrived. The city launched the Magnolia Transparency Hub. Real-time data, traffic stops, citations, arrests, sortable by location, time, officer, demographics, color-coded visualizations. Red for disparities exceeding 2 to 1, yellow for disparities between 1.5 to 1 and 2 to 1, green for proportional enforcement. The first week was a sea of red. Downloadable data sets for public analysis. Simon's Law students downloaded them within an hour of launch. Ran their own audits, published findings on a dedicated website. Quarterly reports comparing Magnolia Springs to state and national benchmarks. After 12 months, results showed racial disparity in arrests decreased from 6.2 times to 1.8 times. Still work to do, still unacceptable, but movement in the right direction. Complaints filed increased 300%, not because behavior worsened, because trust improved. People believed complaints would be heard, investigated, sustained when warranted. Complaints sustained increased from 3% to 31%. Real consequences, real accountability. Officers terminated, suspended, formally reprimanded. The thin blue line developed some cracks. Graves completed bias training. Returned to administrative duties, desk work, paperwork, no patrol, no arrests, no contact with the public. A last chance agreement signed in his attorney's office. 1 more sustained complaint and he was done. He showed up every day, did the work, kept his head down. Months after the incident, Simone visited unannounced. She found Graves in his office, surrounded by files. He looked up, startled. "Professor Langford, I didn't expect you. I wanted to see how the reforms were working from your perspective." Graves gestured to the chair across from his desk. She sat. "I've been doing this job for decades. I thought I was good at it. You were good at enforcement. You were terrible at justice. There's a difference." Graves nodded slowly, opened a drawer, pulled out a stack of files, pushed them across the desk. "Self-initiated review of my past arrests. Found cases where I think I was wrong. Not legally wrong, but wrong." Simone picked up the top file. Read a traffic stop from years earlier. A black man arrested for failure to signal. Bail set high. The man missed days of work. Lost his job. What are you going to do about them? Writing letters, apologies. Can't fix everything, but it's a start. Simone set down the file. "Sheriff, I didn't come here to destroy you. I came here because you destroyed yourself, and I decided whether you'd rebuild or rot." Graves looked at her. Really looked at her. "You gave me a hell of a choice. I gave you the same choice you gave me. Comply with the law or face consequences. You just weren't used to being on that end of it." She stood, offered her hand. Graves shook it. "Keep doing the work, Sheriff. That's how you earn redemption. Not through apologies, through changed behavior." She left his office, walked through the station, nodded at Sergeant Brooks, now Deputy Chief Brooks, saw the body camera charging stations, the new transparency posters. The complaint forms available in English and Spanish. Small changes, systemic changes, the kind that last. 1 year later, Simone returned to Magnolia Springs, not as a defendant, not as a plaintiff, as a keynote speaker. The Georgia Association of Police Chiefs held their annual conference in Atlanta. They invited Simone to present criminal justice reform, a case study. Hundreds of attendees, police chiefs from surrounding counties, commanders, training directors, people with power to change things. Sheriff Harlan Graves sat in the second row, voluntary attendance. He did not have to be there, but he was. Simon stood at the podium, looked out at the sea of uniforms. Reform is not about vengeance. It is about creating systems where my experience becomes impossible. She clicked through slides. Data from Magnolia Springs, before and after. The disparities, the changes, the results. Magnolia Springs did not change because one woman got arrested. It changed because one woman had resources to fight back. She paused. Let that reality settle. But what about the thousands who don't? The people arrested every day who can't afford attorneys, who don't know their rights, who don't have law degrees and professional networks. That's why systemic change matters. That's why body cameras matter. That's why oversight matters. She clicked to the final slide. Outcomes. Nearby towns adopted similar reforms. Georgia legislature considering statewide oversight board mandate. Simon scheduled to testify. Her case study taught at universities nationwide. The video millions of views. Similar audits sparked across the country. One arrest, one woman, one refusal to accept injustice as inevitable. Legacy does not come from silence. It comes from speaking truth to power. These real-life stories, Black stories of resistance and reform, they matter because they show what is possible when courage meets knowledge. The applause lasted minutes. Graves stood, then others. Simon did not smile. This was not about her. This was about the work. After the presentation, she drove back to Magnolia Springs. One last visit. Victor Langston's antique store thrived. A new sign in the window, protected by justice. He had never taken down the video. It was pinned on his social media. A reminder, a warning, a promise. Deputy Chief Lena Brooks ran the department now. First Black woman to hold that position in Magnolia Springs history. She implemented monthly community forums, open dialogue, no questions off limits. Deputy Ramirez led the bias training program, developed curriculum used across counties, found his voice, found his purpose. Graves remained on administrative duty. Eligible for retirement soon. He would take it. Leave the job. Leave the regrets. Try to leave the person he had been. Simon stood outside City Hall one final time, looked at the steps where Graves apologized, where the cameras gathered, where change began. Her phone buzzed. A text from a student. Professor, our latest audit of Magnolia Springs. Disparity down to 1.4 times. Progress. She smiled. Typed back. Keep monitoring. Progress is not permanent. Vigilance is. She got in her car. Checked the fire hydrant distance one last time. Still 18 feet. Still legal. Still proof she had been right from the beginning. But being right was not enough. She had had to fight for it, document it, litigate it, reform it. And now it was your turn. Have you witnessed injustice that went unchallenged? Share your story in the comments below. Not for sympathy, for solidarity, because every story of abuse unpunished is a blueprint for the next victim. If Simon's story moved you, share this video. Tag someone who needs to see that resistance is not futile. It is essential. Subscribe for more stories of everyday people who refuse to accept injustice as inevitable. Simon had a law degree, resources, and platform. Most people do not. That is not a reason for despair. It is a reason to build systems where everyone has the protection Simon had to fight for herself. What will you do with that knowledge?